My name is Angela Cope, and I am the Digital Marketing Manager here at SHI Corp. And I have the honor and the privilege this morning to be meeting with two individuals that I find incredibly intelligent, very easy to work with, and just great for our customers overall. We have Russ Cantwell, Principal Architect here at SHI, and Andrew Miller, Principal SE with Pure Storage, and they're taking on the challenge today of giving me a recap of what happened at Pure Accelerate in September in Austin in 2019. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Russ and Andrew. You guys, I'm curious to know what exactly happened at Accelerate this year. What were some of the big announcements, and what are some of the conversations that our customers right now are very interested about, are asking a ton of questions about, and what's really going on with Pure?
There was a lot. You want to start out with some
It was a
opening thoughts
lot.
for us?
Yeah, and Angela was so kind to give us 20 minutes that in the theme of accelerate, we will be accelerating through this presentation, and I would recommend probably playing it back in about 0.5x whenever you listen to it here.
We were joking about how it feels like we're going to leave out way more than we put in, and that's why we have follow-ups on various topics. And yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but it should be. That's the point of a conference. So
It's a
Yeah.
typical marketer asking technical resources to reduce it to 20 minutes.
yeah, it's our job. It's
We're
our
gonna
job.
we're gonna make it work.
I think we'll start off with a little bit of the vision, and this isn't to go too long on this, but it kind of sets the stage, if you will. So Pure, it was the 10th birthday, which is hard to believe. I'm thinking about what I was doing 10 years ago in '09. I don't know about you, Russ. It was a couple iterations of my career ago, but the messaging there is around what Pure has done for the last 10 years has been successful, right? Billion plus dollar company, IPO'd,
No kidding.
moving toward a what we're calling a modern data experience. It's a tagline, right? But I think it's a pretty good one because what's behind it is that over time, Pure has been built off of proven technology, solid technology, a lot of customers, great support and services, a business model that is profitable, so therefore competitive, as well as can have money to invest back into R&D and innovation and culture. The focus moving forward is on simple, seamless, sustainable. Simple, like you don't want to lose that. You can't lose that as you keep growing, because that's been a lot of the secret sauce for Pure. Things being seamless about any protocol, any location, whether it's on-prem or it's in the cloud. You're not having to think about what type of data you're using, but the platforms will adapt for you. And sustainable, that you can basically where you can buy what you want when you need it. This isn't just necessarily environmental impact that can be there, but you're not having to buy ahead of time because of the technical capabilities of the product, as well as a focus on everything as a service. We're getting some real
Yeah, I think we're
investment.
seeing a fundamental shift in the way applications are delivered,
Mhm.
and that in and of itself is the data experience, right? So yeah, it may be a marketing term or whatever you want to call it that people like to throw puns at, but it is real in the way we are seeing applications delivered, and by that nature, also the way we're starting to have to see the way that infrastructure is delivered. And I like to describe this as making the infrastructure very consumable. So it's almost like you could add a SSS and a C there to throw consumable in there, and that's sort of the nature that we'll talk about, both in the traditional infrastructure as well as sort of up into the cloud.
So it's you and me, our conversations on a day-to-day basis. There's good IDC data around that too. People saying that shifting toward wanting, whether it's on-prem or off-prem, wanting to consume things as a service. Not forcing people here, right? But it's where things are going. There was even some
Absolutely.
analogies you can watch in the keynote about the modern previous telephone grid and utilities. Used to make sparks, and to make phone calls inside a phone. I don't know about you, Russ, but I don't think my kids would know what to do with this. There's some good YouTube videos on that.
Oh yeah, always some good ones on that one.
So there's an announcement of, from a Pure standpoint, being able to consume everything as a service. Some of this was already there. Some of this was a rebranding from an ES2 Evergreen storage service, if you heard about that, but also making sure that everything can be consumed as a service. And then as you looked at the conference tracks, everything was focused around these technology pillars. I think as you read these are relevant to customers, they're relevant for us, and it's where we're focusing both the sessions. The sessions are now online, by the way, as of yesterday. You can go watch all of them. So you can watch all of them online. And without further ado, I think I'll dive into the actual specific product updates. Any more thoughts about the
Yeah.
vision before we keep going?
No, I mean, I think you'll see here, and I like to think in terms of design principles. And one of those design principles is portability, and the other one that goes with it is flexibility. And so while I'm not trying to make a pun about all the abilities, they are very apt to what we'll be discussing, and something that is really, it goes into that whole idea of that new application paradigm. And really what we're seeing customers ask for and try to do, whether or not everyone's able to get there, I'm not real sure, but I think we, have some good tools and announcements here that'll help at least simplify parts of that process, especially as it relates to storage.
And a lot of times people are looking for, even if they're not going there yet, they're investing in a platform, they're investing in a company. They want to know that that company is going the direction they believe they're going, even if not quite sure of their own company's timeline in getting there.
Absolutely. Aligning with your vendors and partners and their strategy as well as it relates to your company's culture is extremely important. I mean, understanding the vision and the thought process and what they think when they're building their products should help you align your strategy internally. And usually if there's some cohesion there, you have a much greater chance of success in your project.
Mm-hmm. Okay. FlashBlade. There were FlashBlade updates. So for those playing the at-home game, FlashBlade is a high throughput, high concurrency optimized platform. Dig more into obviously, what it is existing. There were some big announcements, doubling from 75 to 150 blades. That takes you up into the 5 to 6 petabyte, even without compression namespace. We actually have customers in the AI ML space who needed this, as well as we've had asked for file replication for a while.
We're doing it. It's coming. It's here. It's going to happen.
Early next year. I know this is recorded, right? But talk to your local teams to be more precise about that. And these had to be designed differently. Snapshot based for file replication. It's different than how you handle object replication. But then there were also solution announcements. Vertica. This is a first announcement with Vertica. For an on-prem disaggregated data warehouse, you don't even need to have the Eon caching layer due to the performance of FlashBlade. And some really cool stuff about continuing to accelerate the AI data pipelines. And man, we could keep going there, but I'm going to leave it at that. Russ.
Yeah, I mean, we could spend so much time on this, but I mean, the AI Data Hub, it's another one of those terms that very similar to just the Data Hub in general, seems like a marketing term, but it's actually real. The idea is really to just sort of quickly deploy AI workloads by unifying data that was previously stranded by multiple different applications, or what we would traditionally refer to these as storage silos. So the one thing that is limiting in these types of workloads is the data sets and where they live. Moving data around is difficult. So if you do have something that can sort of centralize that repository of data, provide you that performance that you need to be able to process these often in real time, it really, really opens up the possibilities of what you can do with your data. And I saw a statistic yesterday that the way to leverage data, like even a company that can analyze and leverage data in some way, shape, or form in their business, up to even only 10% of that data, will actually increase revenues by some, sort of magnitude of dollar amount, some KPI they could align to. I think it was $65 million in more revenues for the company, which is also, independent of that particular business. But it's just an interesting statistic that leveraging data, if you have the right plan in place and technology to enable it, can really, really affect the bottom line of a business. And it's where we're seeing a lot of people go. Now, a lot of people know how to do it yet. It's not just buy a product and you all of a sudden get an additional amount of revenue to your company. But if you have the right plan and strategy in place, these tools can really help you. And that's really what this is helping to achieve.
I'm seeing even for customers that don't know what their strategy is, they know there's something there. They feel like if they don't figure it out, their competitors are probably figuring it out. So they keep looking at it.
Disrupt yourself before someone else does. That's what I always say.
VM analytics, from a big announcement standpoint, this is a kind of almost a tactical item, but it's one that's been so valuable to our customers that we wanted to talk about it. We introduced this, I want to say about a year ago. It's to help people with growing VM environments, getting complicated, smaller customers where you've got lots of tools, you're trying to look across to correlate things. Larger customers, you've got silos. So what we did with VM analytics, just the beginning, it really helped with day-to-day troubleshooting, honing it on VMs. You can see this kind of view of actually correlating performance all the way from storage out to the actual VM and virtual disk. So we had continuing asks from customers to, what if I could have more than 7 days of data? Because that's just what it was. It's a free product, right? Free product that was one of the fastest adopted. We're past 1 million VMs actually being referenced in this. It's all delivered out of Pure One. And what if you wanted more reporting? So basically, we're investing more in this product with some new tiers and capabilities, but continue to develop out the free tier as well. More good stuff there, but this has been a fascinating one to see the development and the adoption of this by our customers. Just it would have helped me from a day-to-day operational standpoint when I was a customer, right? This kind of just at your fingers troubleshooting.
100%. Not much to add there. Just glad to see it.
Mm-hmm.
Great product, great tool.
Cloud. Okay, so this is we're now into the land of big topics. So
as we are, this has been huge.
So as I look at this, we're obviously seeing, some people are starting from an on-prem perspective. Some people, Pure has a lot of customers that are software as a service providers. Actually, they're starting from the one cloud perspective, but everyone's moving into this, kind of a multi-cloud hybrid applications. We did this with Pure One. Pure One started out as a single cloud application. It moved into being a hybrid app in Salesforce and FlashBlade and AWS, right? So one of the biggest challenges here that we've seen is that, especially from a storage perspective, these are very different expectations about the resiliency, the efficiency. I guess AWS has a GUI, but you probably don't think more about not using that, like this whole API service-based consumption. That's just making it up. And that's not saying that on, say, like the Pure side, but this is in general. Pure, you can do everything via an API, but people expect things around thin provisioning due to compression. So what we launched out of beta into GA was our Cloud Block Store product for AWS. Now, some of the things here, and Russ and I were kind of laughing about this ahead of time, is this is basically all the benefits of Pure FlashArray in the cloud as you would expect. You've got the efficiency, APIs, the hybrid nature, it's encrypted, just period, right? It's built into the data path. But I had people asking me about, literally as a CIO, like, hey, is this just cloud washing like some of the other products I'm seeing? And
no,
it's not actually. I'm comfortable saying that because even though there's all like benefits here that we'll talk about, I think we've got a follow-up webinar in a week or so with Pure and SHI to go deeper into this. There's some real engineering under the covers. I saw a slide with 100+ engineers. We had to treat AWS not just a platform to run a virtual machine, but as a collection of hardware primitives where we use EBS intelligently for reads and high performance. We use S3 for the long-term durability. We actually use DynamoDB to help with the eventual consistency of S3. And so this is not a AWS in any way that the services aren't sufficient, but we're using them to build an application that looks like a storage array, just like AWS recommends you do. Right?
Yeah, it's amazing. The way I like to visualize this is, so Pure for the longest time, one reason why I've liked working with Pure and why I recommend it to so many customers is because they make not just my customer's job easier, but also mine. Because, as an architect, we design infrastructure. That's what we do. And Pure takes away my need to design for certain metrics inside of storage. And then the customer, it takes away from their need to monitor and manage certain aspects of storage. And I'm talking about things like slack space and a high watermark, the ability for Pure to be 100% performant all the way up to the amount of capacity that the customer paid for because you guys designed around that. This is extending that paradigm into AWS. Traditionally, what you have to do is you have to design intelligence into your application to understand the architecture below AWS, to then create the resiliency at the application level to make sure that all of these things that Pure is taking into account for you are built into the application. And usually, if you're developing some form of product for your company, you may not necessarily be an infrastructure or storage expert. You're a developer trying to create features for your product. And so Pure takes that away by really giving you a blueprint and the design for the proper way to deploy block storage inside of AWS, but also providing that consistent experience with consistent APIs, the consistent GUI, to the point of it's difficult to identify which array you're on if you're on-prem or in the public cloud. And so I like to think of it as a design blueprint as opposed to just, well, am I just running Purity inside of AWS? You are running Purity inside of AWS, but that's not the point. It's taking a lot of the work out for you that you would have to do anyways. So it's sort of a build versus buy conversation. And really, is that worth your time to try and recreate the wheel whenever it's already been created for you and it's proven?
I also like to talk about sometimes the idea of financial headroom. That's this whole efficiency thing. The data reduction capabilities of Pure 10 years ago are what made Flash viable, right? Kind of from a cost perspective. We're doing the same thing from a cloud standpoint, where unless you have a platform that can reduce the data, because you're going to need to pay AWS for the resources and other cloud platforms as they launch, you're going to need to pay Pure for what we've done. Unless you have that data reduction capability, it's not going to work economically, as well as getting data in and out, via replication or other methods. That's going to be even more challenging unless you got great data reduction applied to the replication. So what I find most interesting here is that AWS could be threatened by this. They were on stage with us at Pure Accelerate. They're seeing this help them approach applications that have had challenges running in the cloud, just due to the nature of what you said, Russ. People trying to bring it in, they got to move it back out, all that.
I have spoken, with AWS on this because we have joint customers that we help support, and the interesting thing is we're very intrigued to see what customers come up with use cases for this for, as far as what have they prevented or avoided doing before because setting up that layer of the infrastructure was difficult for them and they didn't have a really good option. So now that they have a pretty easy and consumable way of going about leveraging block storage inside of AWS, what does that open up for them? It's kind of like you said this before in one of our previous discussions where it was, who picks up just on a whim and goes to London for the weekend? Really no one. But if you could do it 10 times faster and 10 times more efficiently, would you? Probably, right? And so I think this opens up that scenario where this is something that's just right there for them to be able to very easily deploy and consume, that I think the people who say to themselves, oh, well, we're not doing that today anyways. Well, that's probably because it was very difficult. What if it was incredibly simple and easy and efficient, and you could go ahead and do it that way? Maybe you'll do something you weren't doing before. So I think that's what I'm interested to see, are the things that customers come up with now that this is a much easier way to go about leveraging block storage inside of AWS.
There's a great blog post by John Owings, Pierre, about even giving the ability to have a consistent Kubernetes experience with Pure Service Orchestrator. Pure Service Orchestrator is a product that's free from Pure that helps integrate your Pure storage platforms into Kubernetes, Docker. There's CSI support in there as well. So you could actually say if you're doing Kubernetes on-prem or in the cloud, it actually feels the same from a storage standpoint. I know you were already talking about that, Russ, when we were chatting earlier.
I am. I'm gonna wait until a little bit later. These are the moments when we say these words that make me mad at Angela for our time frame we're working with. So once we move further into the presentation and talk about some of the other announcements, I think I'm going to incorporate a little bit more of an anecdote around that for sure, but 100% agree.
Last cloud note. We did also release our first product on Azure. So we'd already had the ability to archive snapshots for long-term or other purpose into AWS S3. You can do that on Azure Blob as well. So you heard in the vision, it's a multi-cloud vision. This is a product that's actually showing that we are delivering on that vision, and we will continue to. Right, kind of thing. Purity 5.3, so much more. We among other things, announced encrypt reduce. So there's been a huge problem for a long time of any time that you have data reduction, that anytime you have encryption up at the application level or the OS level, that removes your data in reduction. You get one-to-one. So we actually have some patents around this, which is really cool. We worked heavily with Thales Vormetric, and then Thales bought them. It's around the idea that you can encrypt at the OS level. And then when it gets sent to the storage array can actually check out keys from the same KMIP server. Kind of using a KMIP server, Thales Vormetric in this case. We check out the keys, we decrypt, we reduce the data, and then we re-encrypt it. It's still encrypted end-to-end all the time. That's actually due to some of how we handle things in NVRAM and on disk on Pure, on flash on Pure kind of thing. So this starts to square the challenge of having higher encryption levels or end-to-end while still getting data reduction efficiencies. A lot of work into this. And a differentiator that we believe is going to have some legs, especially as we continue to expand out the OS support. It's Linux today. Partner standpoint, we are the first and only company to be jointly in Intersight, which is Cisco's next generation management platform, and so much more than that to my Cisco friends on the phone. Sorry for summarizing it that fast, but this is a Flash Stack has been very successful with Cisco. That's Pure and Cisco together. And this is actually a true product integration that takes it. It's a reference architecture for the flexibility, but there's more than that, than just that, if you will.
Definitely going to be big for anyone who either bought, Pure and Cisco together as a Flash Stack from the beginning or integrates them after the fact. It's just something we've seen people ask for a lot as Intersight's becoming more and more popular. Integrating all of the Cisco portfolio, seeing that tight integration with partners like Pure is just going to be very valuable.
I was actually at the flash stack table at Pure Accelerate, and it was just a nonstop flow of people coming by to ask about this. Because I mean, Cisco has a lot of customers, and like they're kind of big, right? So
Yes, they
I
do.
think SHI knows that better than I do, because I used to do Cisco as a customer back in the day. Okay, we are into
The
flash.
reach is wide.
We are into the home stretch, but it's a big home stretch. So last 10 years, things have gotten simpler, they've gotten faster, smaller, obviously, and much more reliable. But Flash continues to develop too, both on the upper end, both from a cost perspective, so storage class memory, Intel Optane, 3D Crosspoint, whatever you want to call it, it is much faster, more reliable, but also it comes at a price tag. As well as we've got stuff on the other end of the spectrum, QLC. So much less expensive, but also much less reliable. So we're doing things on both sides. Now, what we're doing there
It's interesting to see these both be integrated around the same time. Usually we sort of see a linear trajectory, right, is what we're introducing into the market. We're having something on complete opposite ends of the spectrum being instituted into the industry at the same time. And it's going to create a lot of sort of, I think, unique use cases for people. And I actually like the way that SCM is being integrated here and some of the possibilities of what QLC is going to enable around even things such as that Kubernetes comment we had earlier, or maybe some other integrations with people like VMware.
So what's interesting to me, what's interesting to me is that there's just like data reduction for Pure 10 years ago, the gift that keeps on giving, it's mattering in a cloud context. The work that Pure did around direct flash, this is where we buy our own NAND. And we actually have it's NVMe inside the array, 256 lanes, not a single pipe going in, much better garbage collection to help, especially with endurance. That's a program array cycle. That's paying off on both of these spectrums. So we introduced on the upper side, direct memory. It's leveraging storage class memory. This is the ability in your existing chassis, your existing X chassis, to put in either 4 or 8 Intel Optane drives and use them as a read cache. There's some real intentionality around this being a very simple way to do it, as well as that we can also, with our customers, we can actually model out for them ahead of time, are they going to see lower latency with their workloads? Because this is not inexpensive stuff. Optane is not cheap, right? It's not meant to be cheap, right? But for certain customers, if this can impact your business, you can develop a new class of service. They can get much faster response time for your tier 1 applications. It can truly be worth it, and we can give visibility off of that based on all the work that we've already been doing with Pure 1 and the true like AI ML stuff there. The one example I'll give, and then I think I'll let you chime in, Russ, is we see a lot of benefits with Oracle, obviously, because that's a major tier 1 application. We also see it with SAP. So SAP HANA specifically in memory database, technology called native storage extension, where if you have something that is close to memory performance, which this is, where you can actually see, in this case, 90% performance, but what if you pair that up with 65% savings, right? Or lower cost than DAS and then memory HANA. So this is where SAP is embracing this with us as well, and we've got some joint our architectures out there with them, because if you want to run everything in memory, there's some cost and even scalability questions there. Just how much memory can you have in systems, kind of thing. And of course, this is playing out for a lot of different tier 1 applications. Thoughts, Russ?
Yeah, I have a lot actually, and I'll just hit the high points. I really love where we're going with being able to leverage cache, but without having to leverage cache. And the reason why I say that is because there's actually a distinct benefit to Pure's, I'll just say their original architecture, in being cacherless. I am an architecture nerd. There are things about being cacherless as it relates to the general performance of the array and the consistency of the experience that is very valuable. And so being able to predict when cache will be valuable will help avoid scenarios when cache maybe not only wouldn't be valuable, but could actually be detrimental, because we do use Pure arrays every now and then to solve problems for customers whenever that customer is leveraging a different product where the entire product is based around cache as the intelligence layer in the owning prospect of the I/O. And it actually can create some sort of strange behavior in certain applications, certain databases from time to time. And so in that scenario, you maybe wouldn't want to use cache, and Pure has the cacherless architecture there. But then in other scenarios where such as HANA, right, or other scenarios where the absolute lowest latency is incredibly critical and you can kind of run that scenario, that test against it, you can throw the cache in there dynamically. And so that's sort of the the beauty, once again, of Pure being able to solve something with architecture design that is relatively unique to the way they handle things. I always like to talk about Pure as one of the best software development companies that I've ever worked with, and it confuses people all the time. They're like, well, aren't they a storage company? I'm like, they are, but fundamentally, what they do is they create a very intelligent software product, and that's what you're getting out of the direct flash, direct memory, the way things are managed, and that's what's creating this flexibility in the platform, and that's what I love about it. So it sort of is the best of both worlds sort of scenario, not to be cliche, but that's what I'm interested to see here is customers using the tools to figure out where it makes the most sense, and then understanding that Pure is also able to solve some traditional problems that we've seen in application behavior where cashless was very, very valuable.
I've used when I talk about this sometimes the Steve Jobs quote of actually it's not Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs quoting Alan Kay, I believe, of the people that really love software end up making up hardware too. Like you kind of get pulled into software. So, like, we make like direct flash, we get pulled into that. We're not trying to be a hardware company per se, but we need to make hardware that matches the software vision and goals. So.
Yeah, it absolutely makes it better. And I'll do one last anecdote on this. I do have some people who come to me and they're like, oh, well, why do you want to use proprietary this and proprietary that? It's not about proprietary. Whenever you tell me that you use commodity whatever, off of the shelf whatever, prove to me that some other product that isn't using y'all's custom development they're using of the NAND, can you just go buy a drive off of Amazon and put it into some other product? Usually not. So it may not be proprietary for some other random product or the development going straight into it, but you can't use off the shelf stuff. And so what I love about the direct flash, I'm going to say model, as in what you guys have developed as opposed to the module, it's making the flash better. And a lot of people who don't understand the way flash works, I usually often would, for a long time, especially when all flash was not as ubiquitous as it is today, I would ask people, has anyone ever explained to you how a flash drive works? And usually the answer was no. Yeah, and so I would have a little whiteboard session about how a flash drive worked. And that's where the conversations around the direct flash module come into play. And so it really enables a lot of the things you guys do from an architecture perspective. It's to the benefits you're being able to leverage, such as QLC, NAND, the benefits of getting longevity out of that performance, et cetera.
Boom. I think that's my segue. So last section, tier 2. Tier 2 has wanted a lot of this stuff, wanted enterprise class. And this is where I'm talking hybrid arrays. I'm not even knocking this because it's been a lot of my history of architecting stuff that's in the 10, 15, 20 millisecond range kind of thing. And we were joking earlier, Russ, I think you ask anyone, partners, customers, would you like flash for all of your data center? Of course. Can you afford it for all of your data center? That's kind of hard.
Probably not.
So there's been just recognition that there's not consistent performance. Just this is the nature of like hybrid arrays, kind of thing. We've got different tiers that are at different speeds, right? Just the nature of what it is. It's better in some cases than having all disk. So we introduced around QLC the product FlashArray C. Now this is at a different performance level because it's using QLC under the covers. And just actually queuing off the direct flash comment, we're uniquely positioned here given a lot of the work that we did with direct flash, especially low write amplification to handle the endurance as well as the performance. So there's some cool deep dive stuff there. But we introduced FlashArray C. It's using the same software as FlashArray X, so it's the same purity code. So that's why it says no compromise enterprise experience, same availability. But it's the performance levels of QLC. Let's call it 2 to 4 milliseconds. But most importantly, it's predictable. It's going to be that way all the time. And this is still far better than a lot of the hybrid arrays, which is really kind of where this is targeted at. And it's optimized around what we're seeing coming from a QLC experience standpoint. So this is expanding out, of course, the FlashArray portfolio. With X, we talked about direct memory. We're kind of expanding it to the upper end. With C, we're kind of expanding it to the lower end, at least from a cost perspective. And there will be file here over time. We acquired a company called CompuVerd. You probably saw an announcement about that 6-7 months ago. This will be part of our. Mm-hmm. This will not be an extra charged feature when it comes out. Talk to your SHI and Pure teams if you want more details here, but there will be native file as a first-class citizen. And I think where I wanted to kind of park here even is just thinking about use cases. I mean, they're dictated by the underlying, throughput and performance of and response time of QLC, but you can start to play this out in some really interesting areas And I think this is where I know you wanted to talk about this one and some other ones too, Russ.
Yeah, so this was big for me. So I wrote a blog post really on Cloud Block Store, but one of the key areas that I also pointed out, in addition to the perspective on Cloud Block Store as a good sort of design paradigm, was really around this VM tiering, right? So I am a huge proponent of virtual volumes. You can come ask me what my birthday is, and by the end of that conversation, we will be discussing virtual volumes and Kubernetes. I'm going to inject it in conversations where it's not appropriate. And this is just a very interesting thing to me, because what this says to me is if you have a FlashArray X and you have a FlashArray C, and you create a policy at the VM level using virtual volumes, that functionally takes away the idea of storage management. That's the idea of what I mean by consumable storage. But it also rings true to the idea of storage classes. So in Kubernetes, when we do things like persistent storage volumes with Pure Service Orchestrator, what do? We create storage classes so that persistent volumes and persistent volume claims can just happen automatically depending on what the tier of storage is. That's the idea of the data hub we talked about earlier. You could have FlashBlade, you could have FlashArray X, you could have FlashArray C, and depending on how you define your storage class in Kubernetes, you can just deploy your application declaratively and it will consume the storage that is appropriate. We're doing the same here for VMs with virtual volumes. Virtual volumes is storage policy-based management at the per VM level, more granular control, lots of benefits that come with that. You can check out Cody Hosterman's blog for pretty much everything on virtual volumes. And this is going to be setting those storage classes across every one of those tiers. So X, C, being able to consume it the way the application needs it. So this is super exciting. This was the biggest announcement at Accelerate for me. I was so happy. People actually were texting me and tweeting me, this is your vindication day. I mean, this is like, this was huge. I don't want anyone to miss this by any means, because as you do look at different performance classes of the arrays, note that you will be able to control these through policy-based management, which is really a framework that we're seeing, flow through all of infrastructure, whether it's in the primary, secondary, network, in the cloud, on-prem. Policy-based management is here to stay, and being able to automatically do this through both array classes is just phenomenal. I'm super excited about it, if you can't tell.
I think what I'm hearing is that even though you ran about something, it might actually even be true, so is that what I'm hearing?
Correct, it might, exactly. Yeah, it's when the marketing meets reality.
I think with that, there was a closing slide here, about just kind of expanding out, FlashArray X and C. Man, we covered a lot. I've been here 8 months at Pure, but I've been doing this stuff for like 20 years. It makes me feel old. Customer side, partner side. Now at Pure. I love seeing the, no pun intended, acceleration of the industry. And I really enjoy being at a company where there's sufficient R&D investment truly to continue driving that acceleration, because it makes for one, it kind of feeds my technical soul. It makes for fun conversations with customers. They're centered around solving problems that no one else can solve at this point. I think that's my closing line. Russ?
Yeah. My last one is say, if you guys want to go into further detail about any of this stuff, feel free to reach out to your local SHI or Pure team, and they can get in contact with myself or Andrew or whoever your local support team is from an engineering perspective, and just go through it in more detail. If it's about vVols and Kubernetes, just go ahead and ask for us.
Thank you, Russ and Andrew, for your time this morning. I know I gave you a challenge, but I also had no doubt you guys were going to be able to get through it and manage it and touch on some of the announcements from Pure Accelerate today. This has been great. And as Russ mentioned, I mean, if you're looking to dive into further details around some of these topics, not only can you reach out to your account executive, and we can get people like Russ and Andrew on the line with you guys, but we're also going to be diving deeper into some of these topics that were covered today over the coming weeks through both live and recorded webinars. So we are going to have additional content available for our customers to consume. And we also just have great content across for customers right now. I know, Russ, you've been involved in various podcasts on Accelerate, and Andrew, I know you're heavily involved in a lot of the thought leadership around what's going on with Pure. So there's just so much out there, so much greatness. And again, guys, I just want to thank you both for your time today. Forward to our next project.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.